My name is Kemal Baykallı. I am the Green Line trade expert at EU-funded EU One-Stop Shop project, which aims to support the Green Line trade between the two communities. And here I have very special guests. I'll just introduce them to you very briefly. And then after, we are going to have 5 minutes of the first intervention from each and every speaker. And then very quickly, we'll go for a second round of 1 or 2 minutes of response time. And then we are hoping to open the floor for discussion after that. So our panels on my right, I have Madeleen Koudstaal, and she's the program manager, Southern Europe, World Bank Group. And this is the second time she is here in Cyprus, and I think you are also overseeing Cyprus as a part of your portfolio. And again on my right, Professor Dr. Mustafa Besim, whom I had to work in the past on the competitiveness of the Turkish Cypriot economy. He's a professor at the Eastern Mediterranean University. And to my left, I have, again, a good friend in Cyprus. Everybody knows everybody, you can imagine. Tüzünkan, he's an entrepreneur, and he's the director of the biggest HR website in the northern part of the island. And he's a process architect. Maybe you can also explain what it means to us. Last but definitely not least, Michalis Strouthos, and he's also an experienced entrepreneur and technologist who studied economics and computer science, and I think he's been working in this field for a long time so that he can have enough experience to tell us what it means when we are talking about digital goals and digitalization and how it will affect the service-based economy. Very briefly, the European Union has passed this decision to establish a policy framework for the digital decade 2030. Basically, it's a program. It aims to turn Europe a more competitive economy based on the digital targets. And there are certain principles, such as the people should be at the center, and there should be solidarity and inclusion there, and then there should be a freedom of choice when it comes to digital targets. It should be participatory, it should include safety and security, and it should be sustainable and should take into consideration a green transition. So I don't want to take a lot of everyone's time. So there are specific targets when it comes to making sure that Cyprus is meeting those goals. But I think it's also important to talk about how the situation generally in the world, if we have some good examples, and I think this means I'll just pass the baton to you, Madeleen, to tell us maybe what it means and how will digitalization help the service-based economy, and also maybe you can give us some basic good practices as an example, and so that we can start the round, please.
Great. So thanks, Kemal, and thanks everyone for being here. So my name is Madeleen. I work at the World Bank Group. I'm based in Brussels, and indeed my second time in Cyprus. I'm very excited. I'm also excited to be at the Cyprus Forum, especially since I saw this morning the undertitle of this year's Cyprus Forum, Learn More Together, and I thought I'm exactly at the right place this time around. So thanks to the European Commission for hosting this specific panel. It's our key partner here in Cyprus we work with. The topic of today's panel, I think, is highly relevant because my understanding is that 75% of Cyprus GDP is based on services. And 70% of the workforce accounts for services as well. So it's a topic definitely not to be underestimated in importance. The digital angle of this, the digital agenda itself, is also extremely important. It's a huge opportunity, as we all know. But at the same time, it's a large concern if we increase the digital divide. So at the World Bank Group, we work for people, for prosperity, and for a better and more sustainable planet. And in this respect, supporting the digital agenda, not just in developed countries, but also in developing countries or in countries that are lagging on digital indicators or on other human development indicators, is very, very important. So I'm not a technical expert on this, but my colleagues in Washington have published a report not so long ago, which I would like to present to you briefly for an understanding. And I learned a lot, and I would absolutely recommend all of you to take a look at this report called At Your Service, The Promise of Services-Led Development, which digs also very much into the question of technology. So my colleagues propose what they call the 4 T's framework for policy. And the first one relates to the T for trade, expanding digital services trade, looking how digital platforms cross-border can provide solutions towards economic integration. And when you talk about services trade, you also think firstly of regulations. Reducing regulatory barriers, my colleagues argue, is especially important to facilitate the trade in services. And particularly they point out in finance, in telecom, and professional services. Another important point on facilitating digital commerce would lie around simplifying the customs cross-border. So better, to help better SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, to engage in e-commerce, for instance. And then the last point under trade is regional cooperation for more harmonized regulations. We'll come in a minute to how this relates to Cyprus as well. The second T is for technology, powering growth and reducing inequality. So specifically technology can help countries that are isolated geographically or that have physical barriers. So also in the case of Cyprus, given its location, it's important to focus on technology. The third T is for training, empowering a digitally skilled workforce by investing more in digital literacy and AI skills. Specifically on AI, I think this is such a new topic. There's very little knowledge about it. But personally, my daily experience is that it changes your life. So especially when you think about those that are using technology and digital services, it's important to also consider the huge potential that AI will have for us. So the fourth T is about targeting. So this is about fostering innovation in key sectors. The report I mentioned points out digital finance, e-governance, and health. Annual growth rates are up by 3% for countries that specifically focus on those sectors. So it's really about prioritization of sectors for a country to invest in. So here is a few thoughts based on the report on how this all relates to the Greek and Turkish Cypriot economies. First of all, infrastructure investments. Imagine broadband internet access. If it's not equal, your opportunities to engage in digital or take advantage of the digital platforms is obviously also not equal. So importantly, to have infrastructure investments on all sides of the island. Second is about harmonizing regulations and improving the business environment. It is complex, as I understand. Green Line regulation does not regulate services. We understand also that a potential digital trade cooperation will not be under WTO rules. Yet there is this current space which needs to be addressed on the shorter term for businesses to be able to connect and thrive. An intermediate step in this regard could be cross-community data sharing protocols, something less formal, hoping for a longer-term solution as well. At the same time, talking about regulations, it's important that both sides keep on improving their business environment, because an unequal business environment will also lead to problems around competitiveness, and it's really important that this is happening in parallel as those discussions on regulations progress. Third point is about integrated payment systems. I think that everyone here in this room knows about it. I think this is a clear case, and we won't spend too much time on it. And finally, digital literacy programs, very important for job opportunities on both sides of the island, and making sure that we are bridging the skills gap moving forward. So there is a fifth T, which is not on my slides, which I think is important to point out, which is the T for trust. So economics is all about trust, as we know. If I give you a piece of paper, you trust that it's worth 100 euros or 1,000 lira, and this is all based on trust. So it's a chicken and egg question. What was there first, the trust or the economic relations? But I definitely believe that economic relations will lead to greater trust and vice versa. So I want to add the fifth B as well. Thank you, and I'm handing back to you, Kemal.
Thank you so very much. I heard many things, especially you spoke about the digital divide. In the case of Cyprus, unfortunately, I think technology is making things even more difficult than easier. It used to be, because it was easier in the past, people finding ways, especially with the trade and with the payment systems, the divide is getting bigger. Professor Besim in the past has taken part in the talks in the solution of the Cyprus problem, and maybe you can also help us within this framework. What is the state of play in the Turkish Cypriot economy, and how prepared the Turkish Cypriots are for this eventual, let's say, a unity of the economy and the technology, and how possible to bring this gap closer?
Thank you, Kemal, and thanks to Cyprus Forum for inviting me for this event. Obviously, Turkish Cypriot economy, similar to the other part of the island, is a service-based economy, and as we heard some numbers, the share of the services sector in the Turkish Cypriot economy is quite similar, like 73% of the GDP is based on services, with quite a significant size of public sector as well, covering nearly 24%. And as you said, the labor force is also quite significant there. We're talking about 76%. So in a way, if this digitalization can be kind of adapted, not only by individuals but also businesses as well as the public administration, I think Turkish Cypriot economy, a service-based economy, would be one of the best beneficiaries of such developments. Now, in the case of where we are, when I look around to see what statistics we have this publication of the Information Technologies and Communication Authority that produces some statistics, but in addition to that, in the previous competitiveness reports that we have carried out, we have also some indications for that. And when we look at that, under the third pillar, which is about the ICT adoption, in that respect, Turkish Cypriot economy is not that bad, I mean, relative to where it stands in ranking. And for example, It ranks 33rd among 141 countries. With the use of mobile telephones, broadband subscription, internet subscription, and fiber internet subscription, which is the worst area. It is not performing very bad, I mean, relative to other competitiveness indicators. So in that respect, what we see here is that actually individuals are quite capable, and businesses, to an extent that they can, are quite fast in adapting the IT and the technology and the digitalization. But it's just that the public administration or the administration does not really provide them the fertile environment to really expand as much as they can. For example, when you look at the fiber optic situation, it's quite bad. I mean, for example, with the digital subscriber line, DSL, it's 2.3%, but with the fiber, it's 0.03%. It's very low. So that's one of the fundamental problems. So basically, the status, or where we are in terms of the digitalization, on the private side, on the household side, we see quite a high level of adoption, but because the businesses do not have the means for being able to use it, they cannot really benefit from this digitalization in terms of increasing or enhancing their competitiveness. And we know that businesses are profit-seeking units, so they would try their best to use the technology and digitalization to minimize their costs, which will allow them to expand or improve their profits. So in a way, what we have in Turkish Cypriot economy is that private sector is kind of leading, or like pushing the public administration to really do their work with regard to soft infrastructure, legal structure, regulations, as you mentioned, physical infrastructure. There's quite a problem with the physical infrastructure, as I mentioned. And when we look at the investment side of it, I mean, ICT investment, we don't have much statistics about those. What we only have is that there is about 20 million euros of revenues that is being generated by these internet providers and all that. But we don't have proper statistics on how much businesses make investments and how much governments make investment in regard to the digitalization or IT. And, you know, with regard to the digital content creation and consumption, we know that there is this 60.3% of mobile users consume more than 8 gigabytes of data monthly. Clouding computing, no statistics about those. So at the end of the day, I mean, the government, the administration does not have an agenda for digitalization. That's really the problem. And so because of that, they are not really, you know, thinking to have a budget for digitalization, whereas you look at the European Union and they spare 2 to 2.5% of their GDP for R&D and such things. So if you don't invest, how can you, create an environment for businesses to be able to function? So the first thing I think should be of the community, of the business chambers and the others to push the administration to really work on a strategic document so that they will really plan for it, make an assessment, what are the needs, and what kind of budget is needed. And I'm sure that there are ways of generating revenues, like this authority that I've been talking about, this Information Technology and Communication, does have quite good revenues. So similar to those, they can find ways of raising funds, because it is not only, dealing with the regularities and all that, but we also have skill gaps. And that's a significant problem, and it's not something easy that you can just, sort it out. So the education system in the north, we really need to, you know, restructure it. Our curriculums has to be restructured in a way that we try to, we push our children or our youth to really work more on the science, technology, engineering, and those areas. So that takes quite a lot of time. We did a study for European Union on the skill gap for these scholarship programs that EU provides to the youth, and we learned from the businesses that, you know, we learn in general that digital literacy issue is a problem in the north, and we learned that there is a shortage of people, experts in IT, and there is a huge demand for those. So those are the areas that we really need to concentrate on, to have a strategic plan, to determine all the needs and make an assessment, and to really work on the education system so that we develop the right skills for our future, and so that we prepare our future for digitalization. Otherwise, we will not be benefiting from this digitalization of which we are a service-based economy, and we should be able to benefit from it more.
Thank you. Talking about the strategy, as a member state, Cyprus actually has a strategy because according to the European Union, each member state is expected to present a strategy about digitalization. And of course, we know that sometimes what is planned and what the reality on the ground can be different. And I'm sure there is nobody better than you are, Michalis, to explain us what the situation on the ground. And you know, Cyprus has been a member of the European Union and has gone through these processes. How do you see it? I mean, you know the story, and what is this situation at the moment?
So the situation currently, with the indexes that I've checked at least, is actually pretty good, as if we compare it with the Greek side and with the indexes that are currently happening right now. So basically, one important part is that on the DESI index, the Digital Economy and Social Index, Cyprus actually jumped from the 54th place to the 40th place recently, and this is actually something very important because it shows that there are great leaps happening right now in the digitalization of the economy, digitalizing of services, but that obviously doesn't mean that there are not multiple problems with it. So from my perspective, I see that, and I'm going to go from a little bit of the practical side rather than the theoretical side, because that's what that's the challenges that we are facing actually right now. The first thing that I see from businesses being digitalized is the cost of digitalization, the cost of changing their infrastructure. Obviously, that means the government as well. I mean, changing the infrastructure and providing a better infrastructure for the businesses and the people to use. So the cost of this change is vast. There are strides being happening right now on this, but still there is a very long way to go until things are changed. Like, let's say, moving services to the cloud, which provides major economies of scale if we do that. But this also has to do a little bit of the mindset of the companies as well, and the government itself, because the government should be actually the first one to digitalize itself. If the government is not digitalized, then it cannot support it, it cannot sustain digitalization of the companies itself. And I'm going to go to a very minor detail, digital signatures. It happens everywhere. In Cyprus, you have to go physically sign and put a stamp that you can buy from the kiosk next door.
Yes.
So that's something that needs to happen. There are some minor steps happening right now. We have a digital signature which is very difficult to get and very difficult to sustain. Yeah, this is actually very important to happen. Also going back to the mindsets. Digitalizing of businesses, and especially service businesses, is actually, again, having to do with the employees getting their mindsets changed in order to accept that change. So them to accept that I will not be working anymore with paper, I will be working with the digital services that I have, I will be inputting the information in a system where everybody can get their reporting automatically rather than having 5 people wasted in generating reports, and they can do better stuff. So it's this mindset that needs to change in the companies themselves, which this will happen when the management actually force that to happen, like the government will force the digitalization on itself. So on both sides, this is what I think needs to happen. But also, yes, having fewer people available to work in these aspects and to digitalize the services is something that we need to prepare for, and we need to work much harder on that. Is actually also bringing into STEAM more girls. Because right now, again, we have 20% of graduates being women in STEM rather than men. So we need to work much harder on that. We need to bring more girls into technology, into STEM in general. There are some minor steps being taken here, but still it's not good enough. Okay. We need to do more. So yeah, that will be a change that will happen through many years to come. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need to prepare more, we need to get better at it, and we need to start preparing more people actually to accept the digitalization so that this happens faster.
Thank you, Michalis. With this, I think we're wrapping the first round. Very quickly, Annalie, I think we also had some best examples that maybe you want to share with us in your sleeve, and
Great.
I'll let you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I actually have 2 examples.
Sorry.
No,
I'll give you
no, it was very useful
Okay.
presentation.
Ali and I, we are very good friends actually. Sorry about that.
Okay.
No worries.
No worries. You are actually.
I'm a good listener.
Yes. You are also running one of the biggest HR websites in the Turkish Cypriot community. Maybe let's start with this, which is how do you see the skills and the demand and for digital skills, and how is it is especially in the Turkish Cypriot community? But I think when we are talking about digital skills, I think the expectations, the supply and the demand are not necessarily very different in various economies. So maybe you can start with this and then you share your perspective as somebody on the field.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
My pleasure.
All the previous speakers were mentioning very important points. Actually, I was so prepared to talk similar points, but I don't know what to add on those. But these are all details. Actually, when we see in an overall picture, at least in Turkish Cypriot administration, there is a very important thing, which it's my personal opinion, maybe it is not the right thing, but what I see, when the negotiation stops, all the motivations to develop goes away. So maybe 7 years, we don't have any motivation. So we are just losing all the skills we have, all the motivations we have, all the in that finance we have, we are just spending it in a very random way. Sometimes we do something, we are investing in construction businesses, and then suddenly we make a regulation change and we destroy it in a year after. Sometimes we are creating an e-government projects, and then a year after We gave it to a Turkish company, doesn't know anything about Turkish Cypriot society at all, and they are just ruining the money and the time.
Ali, why do you think that the Turkish Cypriots do not embrace such plans and developments when the talks are not in, at the background?
Because they don't see where it goes, and they see that we are not managing our own site on our own votes, actually, maybe. But it is very obvious, it is very apparent. One of my close friends who was teaching in a very respected university in northern Cyprus, he was a professor and he was a really good lecturer. He quit from the university and he got the government job in a high school. This shows that on the workforce side, why did they choose the government job? Because they're getting more money, they're working less, they have doesn't any accountability, they don't need to have any accountability, and they have a work guarantee. They see a future and they have a time for their hobbies, for their kids, for their family, for doing nothing, whatever they want to do, and then they just do nothing. So it is not active income actually, it is passive income. So it's being rich, So without doing anything that you are responsible, you are earning a good money. And with the Medcan's thing, our minimum wage is more than south side. Our wage of our ministers is more than southern part. And so why do they want to have some digital skills, developments, and those kind of stuff in the private sector? And so, as soon as possible, you need to get a government job and get your life guarantee. And then, if you have time and will and motivation still, so you can do something else. Nobody cares about it. So what they do is they work in the government and they do government jobs with a commercial company, and they are doing the commercial projects while they are working in the government office. And they all know about this, and these are complete nonsense. So without accepting what it is right now, I think we are not going to be able to do better than this, because we didn't make a decision to make better things.
Is there a demand for such skilled work by the companies?
Of course there is. Of course there is. Of course, with the private sectors, with the private companies, of course there is a demand. But when we look at the workforce side, they don't want to work in the private sector. They want to work in the public sector because they are not working in the public sector and they are earning more. So if there is an opportunity to work less and earn more and more guarantee, why do you need to make skills to work in the private sector? There is no motivation about that thing. So these are completely true. So when we look at the workforce, okay, there are more big portion of Turkish Cypriots which are actively looking for the government jobs. One of my close friends who is serving the best lunch meals in Nicosia, she is actively looking for a government job right now. I saw her yesterday, and she said that I'm going to talk to mayor of Nicosia to get a municipality job in Nicosia, because she is not being able to foresee the budgets and everything, and she's being tired of it. So this is completely practical truth what we are facing. Digital literacy programs. You know that. Can you consider a country that having more than 100,000 students in the universities, but there is not even one lifelong learning, highly qualified, quality teaching Word and Excel? I have never seen a good course that teaching Word and Excel which private sector companies requires. Teaching pivots and everything. So they don't know pivots. So actually we are moving worse on digital literacy anymore, because right now what people are happy with is WhatsApp. So even we are losing our email skills as well. So instead of making a development, we are going worse. And sorry, these might be controversial, but these are really practical truths of our Turkish Cypriot administration. We need to make a decision to make our island better.
Okay.
I think we have really important need for the negotiations in order to have a motivation, because in other case, I don't see any motivation on myself as well. We are just living.
Thank
Okay.
thank you very much for sharing
No
your
worries.
frustration
No
and
worries.
experience
It's-
as well.
it actually
I think
it's-
it's important to look at things
The
as they
motivation,
are
because
at the moment.
without motivation,
Yes.
we cannot do anything.
But again, maybe maybe we talk a little bit about the best practices. So maybe that will motivate us a
Okay,
little
yeah.
bit and see where we go.
Yeah, thank you. So I hear your frustration too, and I can see that. And I hope I can bring two examples. One is an example of a country which has taken some decisions to go one way, and another one is a much more practical example of a group of people like you and I, exactly, that do something. So Bulgaria is, so let me start with the question of skills, actually, which we have been discussing, the demand for digital skills. So I did some research on this and found some studies by McKinsey saying that 87% of firms that they interviewed say that they are currently experiencing or expect to experience very soon skills gaps in their IT teams. 87%. And then 4 out of 5 employers report having difficulty finding suitable IT staff. And 55% of those that are struggling are willing to bring in those skills from abroad or use the skills abroad without the need for having them physically in country. So Bulgaria is a very popular outsourcing destination. I've worked with the country for a couple of years now. Even the World Bank has a shared services center there of 200 people that are working on IT services. And why? So for a couple of reasons. Reasonable cost versus quality. If you compare Bulgaria salaries versus US salaries, you have 60% savings. Quality is still good, people speak languages, so you have a win-win situation. Second, the scalable supply of a talented pool of staff, of people. So is the country able to provide not just 10, but 100 or 500 software engineers? In the US, I believe there's 90,000 vacancies for software engineers. So if you're looking to go abroad, there is a market. Third is location and time zone convenience. So location is not necessarily physical location, but where are you in time zone? It can be very helpful. Also, the World Bank, for instance, we have our offices in India. So if, for instance, during my morning, I call someone, it's in the afternoon in India. So you can also, therefore, be 24...
Had their coffees already, so...
24 hours, exactly, 24 hours available a day. Fourth is the cultural similarities. This helps a lot in terms of providing quality to clients. And then fifth is the business environment conducive to establish IT hubs. So obviously Bulgaria is creating a conducive business environment so that companies are keen to start up. This obviously needs to happen more in Cyprus, from what I hear. The other example I want to give is in Gaza. It's a project the World Bank supported, started in 2015. It's called the G Gateway. I really encourage everyone to take a look at what they do online. It's a women-led IT outsourcing business. It started small, and they're pretty sizable now. Over a period of 10 years, they've trained over 1,000 young people and women specifically to become more active in the IT world. And we've learned a couple of lessons from them. So their biggest success is what I mentioned, the empowerment of women and youth. And the second important success is that they were able to engage with clients globally. So they went out and they got some clients far overseas. that are using this business up to today. So how they did it is partly through partnerships with the World Bank and the UN, and this was important because they did experience the challenge of being isolated and of perceptions that was not always easy for them to get market access. Another challenge, of course, was the sheer fact that they were operating in Gaza itself with electricity challenges, with mobility challenges, and with overall isolation. How they solved it was through a sort of hybrid approach. They had both a physical space where there was electricity guaranteed in infrastructure, and they were working with freelance colleagues within the country. Important here to mention also, as we discussed, the low female labor force participation in TCC specifically, that when considering a strategy on digital, it's important to, from the very first steps, integrate also the gender aspects. So please do take a look, and also feel free, anyone, to reach out if there's any questions or if you want to be in touch with this incredible group of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Besim, do you see the chance of a convergence in this current situation, or would you like to also respond some of the interventions here?
Well, I mean, obviously, because of the political problem for so long, and also because of the initiatives for like confidence building measures and other EU adoption of acquis communautaire and all that, has not really been very successful to the extent that we really desired and hoped in 2004 and 2005. There is quite a divide, unfortunately, and there is also quite a divide within the infrastructure side of the two sides. So I think if there is a will, you know, both communities can benefit from their successful stories. I mean, there was a mention of some success stories. In the north, we also have some not very successful, but some success stories, like the digital signature issue, which is not quite complete, but it is, you know, at least in the public administration, it is being used within this ABIS system. My university actually also uses that system we are within that framework as well. We recently shifted to that regime, which saves us a lot of paper, and it is quite fast and efficient. So we also know, for example, that the trade unit department gives import permits online, which I think is quite a time saving for importers in the north. You don't need to go to the offices and, you know, present papers. You can online make applications and get the permits. We also know that Chamber of Engineers, Ali can correct me, they also have a digital system where if you are importing something, electrical devices, equipment, or electromechanical devices, they can give you, you know, online or via internet permission to import it. So these are, and I'm sure there are other good examples. So we should, maybe there are many more, especially in the private sector, that yes, we don't know. So both communities can kind of exchange this. I see Michalis mentioning the electronic signature issue. We probably have similar problems and all that, and think the way forward. Because, I mean, this IT, R&D, and such budgets we need a lot of budgets. We need a lot of money, and given our public finances and given our budgets, I think if we cooperate and if we spare budget together, maybe with the support of EU or other international FIs, then maybe we would be more successful. So why don't we have a bi-communal agenda for digitalization? I think this would be a very important issue, a confidence measure. And I would, I saw, I think Arno around, yes, there he is. I would also propose that since there are technical committees that are meeting for confidence building measures, maybe within the trade, finance and committee or a separate committee, there can be an agenda added for this issue where, you know, we can work together. We can, I know there are like recognition problems via the crossing borders and all those, but I am sure we can find common areas where these are not really obstacles and concentrate on those. For example, I see quite a significant opportunity in education and research. And we have universities, we may not be very successful, but academia can work together to really, you know, on this digitalization. Tourism sector is always there. Why don't we just think about an application like a Cyprus Bridge, you know, Cyprus application where tourism sector units, they can work together, which would help tourists to expose all parts of the island, you know, including the transportation, you know, roads, maps and everything. So there are a lot of opportunities. I know there are significant barriers and, you know, when you come to that point, you know, you just stop. But I think we should strive to find common areas that are not a problem politically, yes, and push for those. I mean, that should really be the objective. Otherwise, if we wait until we solve the Cyprus problem, we may be losing many things, and I understand what Ali is trying to put forward very well. So try to find common grounds where politics and this political problem and recognition are not an issue. Concentrate on those, and I am sure this would greatly help to build confidence within communities.
Thank you. I take note of the bicommunal agenda for digitalization, something to think about. But not only for Cyprus, within Cyprus, but can Cyprus or is Cyprus an example to become very competitive internationally, regionally? Do you see among your clients that Cyprus is becoming a competitive digital hub for services? Michalis.
We actually see that happening already. And I'm referring to actually the international companies that are actually right now bringing their headquarters to Cyprus, but not only for financial or tax purposes, but also they bring their people here.
Oh.
Like, just as an example, I'm gonna bring JetBrains, which is a multi-billion-dollar company, which moved their headquarters to Limassol and brought all of their people here. Actually, they work from Limassol right now. So you see this happening already, due to tax purposes, obviously, but also.
But of course, policy is part of this. So.
Policy is part of this, of course, but it's not only for the tax purposes, but also for the fact that they make it easy for.
Accessing.
The quality of life here in Cyprus obviously is much better than many countries around the world right now. So it's much easier to be here. Obviously, companies moved, a lot of companies moved due to the war with Russia and Ukraine. So this actually was again helped actually bring companies here, but this is happening. This is bringing people here. I would like actually to also refer to a couple of points from previously, where one point I would like to say is that where it goes to digital government, things are happening. Municipalities actually are working a lot right now in digitalizing their services, which is very good. They start digitalizing and removing paperwork from the equation. But a very important point, which is helping by communal technology references, let's say, is an app that I'm proud to say that we've built actually. It's called Culture Connects, and it's the first app that includes content for both the northern side of Nicosia and the southern side of
So
Nicosia.
can we download it?
You can download it. It's 3 or 4 years old. I mean, it's
Okay.
not a new app. It was created by the Severis Foundation, and you can download it and get an audio guide, which will help you actually walk in the walled city of Nicosia in either side, and it's available in 7 languages.
Take note, people,
yeah.
and check it out.
That's actually a very important project, I think, for this aspect, digitalizing tourism for both sides. So it was a very good opportunity that we got actually to work on that project. So yeah, things are happening there. In regards to the digitalization problem being relevant to actually the northern and the southern side, what I would like to say is that we don't really have any issues connecting digitally on both sides, and we don't have any communication issues with that. The only problem that we currently have with the digitalization is telecommunications, which currently, if I call someone on the north, I'm gonna call Turkey, and I'm gonna call an international line.
Yes.
So that's a problem. That was very briefly solved for a few days back in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, when the organization that I'm a part of, Cypriot Enterprise Link, has run an international, has run a hackathon all around Cyprus. So we had a hackathon running in 5 cities all over Cyprus, and during that weekend, actually we convinced, and we worked with the UN obviously and the telecom providers, and we connected the cities by telecommunications over that weekend.
So if there is a will, then there is actually a way.
Yes, I think it's mostly political rather than technological anyway.
Yes.
So there is no issue there. And the last point that I would like to make is about the international teams that you referred to, Amelie. Actually, this is already happening, and I think COVID helped. I mean, with the negatives that COVID brought, it opened our minds to actually look for team building internationally. I mean, my company right now has half of its team in 7 countries. So even though we are 14 people, half of our team is actually in other countries in the world, in Europe, but also outside, in Egypt, in Malaysia, and many other countries. So yes, this is happening, and actually it brought us to focus on finding the right person anywhere, rather than trying to find within 1 million or 2 million that Cyprus is, the right person. So yes, this is actually helping a lot, and I think it's going to grow further and being used by many other companies.
We are running quietly out of time, but tell us something positive, Ali.
If there is a will, there is a way.
If there will be a solution, the possibility of the Turkish Cypriot businesses and the Turkish Cypriot graduates to catch up and then integrate and convert. Is it possible, or is it going to take a lot of time?
It is. Once you have a motivation, you can do everything. I lost 10 kilos in order to win a tennis match, so everyone can do anything. So it's just about
principle. But if you look at the facts on the ground, do you see it happening?
Of course there is. Of course there is. That's the problem actually. There are huge potentials, but we are just wasting time. That's my frustration, because once you don't see the potential, why do you need to frustrate?
All right. Okay.
That's the thing. Of course, there is a hope.
Thank you so very much. Just 1 or 2 very quick questions all together, and then we'll finish the session. Anybody wants to make a comment or question? Jan, please. Anybody microphone for?
It's okay.
It's okay.
I have a question from Michalis. It's very interesting that you mentioned the hackathon. I've never heard of that, but you said that the issue was solved. So I would be interested to hear a little bit more about that, and why has it not sort of been spread to the public or the system? Because this is, yes, a big issue. I mean, people cannot even, actually, if you have a Turkish Cypriot card, you go to the Turkish Cypriot community. First, it's blocked completely, and then you have to ask the operator to actually activate it, so they can activate, but you're paying roaming fees.
Thank you.
Exactly.
So that's quite something
yes.
interesting. And we maybe
Another question or comment, and I'll give everybody the chance to respond. Anybody else? Yes, please.
I'm going to make a rhetorical question. And it kind of links to the previous session that I participated in, which was human rights. I was talking about Gaza. We were talking about an IT-related digitalization issue. And Mr. Ali mentioned his point of view, the professor is, and the lady from the World Bank. So the truth or the solution is somewhere between the three of you. And the question that I'm going to answer is that can human rights, can XYZ problem, can the problem of digital be solved or resolved in a political vacuum?
Okay.
Vacuum, I mean, without taking politics into account. The answer is partially yes. So, to you, sir, we're all human beings, regardless if we live in the north or south. Okay? Give us a title, Cypriots. Okay? We have needs. In order to invest, we want to make money. So people will not invest if they don't foresee a return
Yes.
on investment. So somewhere between you three, the ideas I mean, there is a way forward.
Yes.
I also heard Michalis, what you said. I work in or help a startup company that dealt with digitalization in the shipping industry. So converting manual logbooks, etc. Mindset, yes, was an issue. Money from the investor was an issue. But once they see the benefits, there are many ways to show these to the end user and to the person who's going to put his hand deep in his pocket. Everything is feasible. But the political issue of Cyprus needs to progress.
Yes.
And here again, we can do so much. I'm Cypriot, okay? Ethnicity Greek. You are Cypriot, ethnicity Turkish, okay? It's not up to us. We need help from outside to resolve this.
Yes. Thank you so very much. Just to briefly, there was a question about the hackathon you were mentioning about how it was solved. And of course, there were beautiful remarks on the fact that, yes, there are things that can be done without the solution, but we need the political solution at the end of the day to be able to use our potential fully. Michalis, very briefly, if you can respond to the first question.
So, yeah, that was a few months of discussions back then between SIDA, the UN, and the northern side telecommunications providers. We managed actually to, let's say, run a trial set of connecting the two systems back then for a weekend. It wasn't advertised, it wasn't brought to the public, but we could try it over that weekend and few people knew about it. So technically it's feasible to be done. What needs to happen is to find a permanent solution and bring this to the people.
Thank you. Any other people want to say last 1-2 things? Well, thank you so very much. I think before finalizing, from the last divided capital of Europe, the messages are very clear. Yes, there are difficulties. So the number one message that we want to give, there are very good examples from the world, but the Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots are actually ready to converge and to make Cyprus as one of the leading technology, digital service sector hubs of the region. And there is a big potential for this. And we are hoping that there will be political issues. However, the message is very clear, I think, to everybody. The potentials and our future and our vision for the future is far greater than the obstacles. So, and I think this is how we can maybe finalize. We need a better future for our people, for our businesses, for our children, for the next generation, to become a hub for services, a hub for technology, but also an example to the rest of the world in this very problematic area to become a hub for peace. So thank you very much for your participation. And thank you for all.